the fuck? A Techmo video that isn't about technology? What? This is insane. Now look, you already know what the video is, just judging by the title alone, so let's get right to the point. Now look, I'm gonna make an obvious statement for anybody involved in any sort of concert culture, and that is, I fucking hate Ticketmaster and Live Nation with a burning passion. And when I say a burning passion, I really do mean a burning fucking passion. So, for context, a coworker of mine came up to me earlier about a concert that she was going to. Specifically, a concert for Suicide Boys, their grade A tour specifically. Now look, it's not really my type of music, but I respect the fuck out of that, and I love hearing people's concert stories, and I love hearing about the music that people enjoy. Because music is one of those things that heals the soul. Music is one of those things that brings people together. If there is anything that is unifying in this world, it is music. It's one of those things that just brings people together. The art of melody, sound, tone, and rhythm. But I digress. She was telling me about the tickets, and she was telling me that they were roughly $350 a ticket to go to the concert. I don't know about you, but $350 is a metric fuck ton of money for a lot of people. Let me ask you something. Do you have $350 to spend on concert tickets, or do you have bills to pay, mouths to feed, and rent that keeps getting raised because your fuck-ass landlord decides you haven't had your cojones squeezed and pulled hard enough? She also informed me of a Bruno Mars concert in which the tickets were $500 for the nosebleed seats, where you could barely see Bruno Mars on stage. Bro looked like a fucking ant from the video that she showed me. Again, you could barely see him on the fucking stage. Now, again, I want to clarify, Bruno Mars isn't really my type of music, but have you seen some of the tickets to American football games, or rugby for everybody else in the rest of the world, or basketball games? They are absolutely fucking insane. But I don't really care about sports, so I don't really plan on going to any sports games anytime soon. Now, there is good news in regards to this, but I will talk about that later on in the video. And honestly, I have a solution to the Ticketmaster debacle that I will also mention at the end of this video. Do note that it does require some very idealistic thinking, and it also requires a restructuring of how tickets are handled without Ticketmaster and Live Nation.
Techmo, if you aren't going to the grade A tour, and you don't like Bruno Marches, and you don't give a damn about the NFL, NBA, NBL or NHL, then why do you care so much about this topic? Why waste your energy talking about something like this? It really sounds like you're complaining about something you have no skin in the game for.
Well, that's where you're wrong, actually, because I do have skin in the game. I have a lot of skin in the game, because believe it or not, there have been so many times, so many days, where shit was ruined because of Ticketmaster, and the way that they jack up the price, and the way that they fuck over the events that I want to go to. Now, for those of you who are unaware, I am a massive electronic music fanatic. I've been to quite a few concerts throughout my life. I've seen Odessa at Red Rocks in Morrison, Colorado. I've seen Death Grips in Albuquerque. I almost saw Nero in Las Vegas, but barely missed it by a day. And I've seen Porter Robinson in Phoenix, Arizona. By the way, I uploaded all my concert footage from the Porter Robinson concert onto archive.org if you wanted to watch it. It was a really fun time. But anyone who knows me knows that I am a massive electronic music fanatic, and that ranges between people like FC Kana, Kepi and Kat, all the way over to the larger artists like I mentioned earlier, Porter Robinson and Skrillex. I love electronic music. And again, the Porter Robinson concert, it was such a lovely performance. The ambience was superb, the light show was simply stunning, and the community was lively, and the music, oh holy fuck the music. I could go on and on about how wonderful this show was, the merch that I got, the up-close performance that I got to see from one of my favorite artists. And that's not even including that this concert also introduced me to an artist that I have never heard before named Jai Wolf. I have to say, it was a really magnificent concert. But I digress. I have some skin in the game because of the amount of money that people, including myself, are expected to pay for concerts being absolutely fucking ludicrous. I'm going to give out 2 examples of some really large festivals that I really want to go to before it's my time to kick the fucking bucket. Those being EDC Las Vegas, also known as Electric Daisy Carnival, which is a 3-day-long festival that features some of the lesser-known and larger-known names in electronic music. On top of that, the venue is the size of a small town. By the way, EDC is the one I'm going to really drill into. But the other one I also want to go to at some point is Ultra Music Fest in Miami, which is another one of those large music festivals that are packed to the absolute brim with some of the artists that I love, and some artists that I could honestly just discovered. What does all this have to do with Ticketmaster? Oh, I'll tell you. I'll sing to you like a little birdie as to what the fuck this has to do with Ticketmaster. Why is it that a 1-day pass to a 3-day-long festival, keep in mind, with only general admission, is $280 for the shittiest possible seats at some of these venues? The other prices are $375 for 1-day GA Plus tickets, and VIP is $500 for 1-day VIP. Now for context, if you're wondering what the difference is between general admissions and general admissions plus, here's the revolutionary difference. You get $100 worth of merch credits split into 2 different accounts. A somewhat faster way to get into the venue via dedicated GA Plus entry, and special access to premium restroom trailers. Now let me make it clear, you are spending what is basically an extra $100 for it to be easier to take a dump. Oh, and here are those cards that show you what the prices are. So for the Sunday pass, it's $200 for the tickets and $80 for fees. What kind of fees? Oh, I don't know, maybe the we hate you and we can force you to give us extra money fee? And by the way, that's not even including the fact that the tickets are sold out and they don't fucking tell you that. So the tickets are sold out. They seriously do not disclose what kind of fee is being applied, and if I had to take a guess, the extra $80 fee on the GA Plus is the we gave you an easier option to take a shit fee. Now look, I get it. EDC is only a month away. It makes sense that the tickets might be a little higher than they normally are already, and it makes sense that a lot of the tickets would be sold out at this point. However, I wouldn't be making this argument if they weren't extremely fucking expensive before the minor price hike as well. Because again, believe it or not, as a person who wants to go to EDC at some point, I do pay attention to the prices of the tickets. And I do get bummed out because something fucks up on my car and I have to sink $400 on a car part just like the average American. I am burnt the fuck out and I want to have a little bit of a good time, so I save up for it. I save and I save, only for it to be taken away because of some bullshit outside of my control because, I don't know, I need to replace the fucking brakes on my car and the brake rotors are a little rugged. And Ticketmaster is not helping with that shit either, by the way. Again, quite the contrary.
Techmo, these tickets are being sold on the EDC website through a vendor named Frontgate Tickets. If you should be blaming anyone, you should be blaming Frontgate for what they are doing with ticket prices for this venue, not Ticketmaster.
Silica, please do me a huge favor and do a further search on Frontgate Tickets utilizing the Google web-only search engine, and tell me if you find a Wikipedia article that mentions Frontgate Tickets on it.
Searching for results under Frontgate Tickets, Wikipedia. Scanning. In 2015, Ticketmaster acquired Frontgate Tickets, a music festival ticketing service that provided services for festivals including Lollapalooza and Austin City Limits. I see where the problem is. Correct internal records in regards to Frontgate Tickets and Ticketmaster's relationship to Frontgate Tickets.
Alright, sweet, thanks Silica. Alright, now back to what I was saying. Ticketmaster and all the companies associated with Ticketmaster keep jacking up the price over and over and over and over again until most of the poor wage cucks like myself can't enjoy it, while the whales who have extremely large amounts of disposable income to spend on gas, plane tickets, food, when they're not at the event, and again, hotel rooms, so on and so forth, in a city like Vegas, by the way, which, oh boy, in a city like that, everything is expensive. Not to bash the city that I was born in, but goddammit, Johnny Rockets, $18 for a bum-ass chicken sandwich with no fries and no drinks is simply not fucking worth it. The underlying point that I'm trying to make here is that I hate Ticketmaster because they keep jacking up the price of the tickets. Almost every single time I look at the tickets to things like EDC, Ultra Music Fest, or You Belong Here, Now, I remember back in 2023, when Taylor Swift listeners were crying on TikTok, talking about the prices of the tickets and the live shows for their events. Now look, I get it, Swifties are some of the most annoying fucking people on the planet. But this is a shared fight. Listen up, I will side up with someone who listens to Garth Brooks or George Strait if it means doing something about Ticketmaster, and the fact that they're just able to fuck around with the prices whenever they want. Honestly, I'm gonna have to give the Swifties some credit where credit is due, because this entire Ticketmaster Live Nation debacle was all because of a series of Taylor Swift concerts. Now, before I continue on with my EDC crash out, I think it's important to circle back to where all of this started in the first place. Now, a large chunk of this will just be me going over this Wikipedia article pictured on screen, as well as what I remembered from watching the entire shit show go down on the news about 3 or 4 years ago, all of which led to arrests, multiple lawsuits, and various forms of political action within the United States, as well as a general backlash from tons and tons of Americans who just wanted to have the ability to go to a concert for a decent price. The fucking audacity. Now here's the shit. Here's what essentially went down. Ticketmaster didn't account for how many people were going to attempt to go to Taylor Swift's Eras tour during the years of 2023 and 2024. On November 15th, which was the first day of US presale tickets, the website for Ticketmaster crashed following what was called a historically unprecedented demand. The parent company of Ticketmaster, Live Nation, said that they had prepared for 1.5 million verified fans, but 14 million attempted to purchase tickets at the show. Live Nation had to make a statement in which they basically said that they were not prepared to deal with the amount of people purchasing tickets, and again, unprecedented demand. So what did they do? They ended up canceling sales. Now, not everyone was issued a refund, and some people basically froze with a few thousand people in queue while their payments were still in the middle of being processed, and a bunch of other shit that I'm not gonna get into. Now, the Rolling Stone even said, and I quote, "The site was unprepared to accommodate the sheer force of hundreds of thousands of Swift fans," which, why the fuck were you unprepared for that? I don't think they understand, or honestly they probably do and just don't give a fuck, about how dedicated and how much money Swifties are willing to pay to see a Taylor Swift concert. Those tickets are not fucking cheap, by the way. Those tickets are not cheap in the slightest. According to this post on Reddit, somebody said $3,400 with this up-close shot. Out in Canada, somebody said they paid $16, while somebody else in the United States paid $500 for the same view. Now, for the Canadians in my audience, that person who's saying $16 is the fucking GOAT. I'm so glad they exposed that. Thank you, Canadians. But also, I gotta put into perspective how much $500 is in Canada. This is what it would cost to get that same fucking ticket. Honestly, I'm surprised Ticketmaster did not understand how rabid the average Taylor Swift fan is. I don't think they understood how many Taylor Swift fans there are. They are legitimately one of the largest and scariest communities in terms of concert goers. While all of this was going down, a lot of people took to social media complaining about how dogshit the servers were for Ticketmaster, and not only were people complaining about Ticketmaster's dogshit servers, but people were also complaining about how it was almost impossible to get tickets for the Eras tour. This went from being a mild annoyance and a thing that just somewhat peeved off a lot of people to becoming a massive problem, with people saying it was hard to navigate, it was full of surprise fees, and there were insane reseller prices for tickets. Basically the whole 9 yards of what I am talking about in this video. Bloomberg and Future even going out of their way to call Ticketmaster's entire process of selling tickets a confusing, multi-step buying process plagued with additional fees, long waits, technical problems, and poor customer service. This was basically the kindest way for Bloomberg to say that this was a complete clusterfuck of a service, especially on that day. And again, it was November 15th, it was the first day of the pre-sales. So of course people are looking for those fucking tickets. The Swifties practically had a generational fucking crash out. And the crash out was so bad that multiple of them even went out of their way to file claims against Ticketmaster, and lawyers who were fans of Taylor Swift mobilized a grassroots organization known as Vigilante Legal LLC. Gen Z political activists even came out with a movement known as Swift, or Swifties Working to Increase Fairness from Ticketmaster. Swift was made in order to fight for legislation against Ticketmaster. When I say this whole thing was a shit show, I mean it. That's not even including the larger online communities that started making resale accounts in order to combat and fight back against potential scalping attempts, and in order to make sure that people could get access to a resold ticket without having to pay some extreme amount of money that was post-ticket price. I remember a while back when I was watching the news regarding this entire situation, a line that stuck out to me was the following. I flew to France to watch Taylor Swift just so I would avoid Ticketmaster. It was cheaper to fly to France as opposed to staying here to watch the concert. Let me put it this way, you know it's bad when people are leaving a major country which is known for partying and hosting insane shows just so they can get away from the bullshit and predatory practices of Ticketmaster. I would also like to mention that I have heard this coming from people that I also talk to day to day, that they would rather fly to a country like Turkey just to see a concert from an artist that they like because it's too fucking difficult and expensive to get a ticket for most concerts here in the United States. Okay, now that we're done with all of that, let's go back to my own personal EDC crash out. Hey, it's Techmo from the future, yet again. Something I want to bring up is the fact that I have mostly been talking about EDC up until this point and Taylor Swift. However, I do want to also point out the ticket prices for Ultra Music Fest, which I have mentioned that I wanted to go to. This is another one of those 3-day long festivals, and I mentioned it earlier in this video what it actually was. But, can you just tell me what these prices are? Can you tell me why they're this expensive? Aside from, you get to say that you went to Ultra Music Fest and saw Armin van Buuren? Can you, actually explain this to me? No? Okay, sweet, that's all I wanted to know. Thanks! Now, earlier I mentioned that the one-day passes to a 3-day long festival were just absolutely insane. The current 3-day passes are sold out, which is fair enough. Again, it's close to the event's scheduled time. You're probably not even going to be able to attain those passes in the first place. Now, something worth noting is the fact that there is a huge meme within a lot of different music-based communities and concert goers, and that being the fact that you will never, ever, 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 ever want to go to a reseller. You never want to go to a ticket reseller. If you thought Ticketmaster's price hiking scheme was bad enough, then oh boy, you should never, ever go to a reseller's website. The obvious reason being because of scalping. I hope I don't need to explain what scalping is. We've all dealt with it for years at this point. Now, due to the way that Ticketmaster has been signing deals with venues, and due to the fact that they have basically almost complete control over most services in the United States when it comes to purchasing tickets for events like this, what if I told you that Ticketmaster also owns the service used to resell their tickets? Look at this shit, dude! Some of these are way over the price that they should normally be. It's literally a Ticketmaster-sanctioned scalpers market. So Ticketmaster not only owns the regular market, but they also own the fucking black market. I'm dead fucking serious. Go to EDC Las Vegas' website, scroll down to the 3-day passes that have been sold out, click on the button that says official resale, and then look at the URL on the page. Oh, and by the way, I was actually recently informed of how the entire ticket reselling system works. Asterisk. From my understanding, the process of selling one of these tickets, and I could be wrong here, but I'm inclined to believe that I'm correct, the way that you resell tickets from Ticketmaster is the following. You buy the ticket from Ticketmaster, obviously they make money from that because they're the ones selling you the ticket. Now let's say something happens. You have to go to a funeral because old granny got hit by a bazooka, kaboom kablow. So you decide to resell your ticket. Well, Ticketmaster tickets are attached to you and you specifically. Now, this causes you to need to use Ticketmaster's resale website to sell the tickets, in which you have to pay them to accept the tickets instead of getting a full refund for the tickets directly from Ticketmaster, and then they do it. Essentially, they're telling you that you can't give them the tickets back, you have to do it yourself, but you have to use a system that they have engineered. When you sell the tickets, by the way, they get a cut of what you made from selling the tickets. If this sounds absurd to you, then congratulations, you have eyes and ears. So let's get our facts in order here. Ticketmaster, which is owned by Live Nation, owns most of the ticket vendors and venues in the United States, has been making backdoor deals with other venues in order to mess with the prices. They turn around and place undisclosed fees on the tickets, which end up forcing them into costing even more than they're actually worth. Oh, and by the way, none of this is accounting for tax or shipping fees or anything along those lines. So again, the tickets are not actually worth that much, but Ticketmaster just decides that they are for no fucking reason. They just get to write the rules because guess what? Nobody else is in town to tell them no, the fuck they can't. And on top of that, Ticketmaster has bought out even more of the ticket vendors for things like sports games and festivals as well. And then on top of that, they own the ticket resale websites and will charge you for the ticket if you can't make it to the show, and then they will charge you another fee to sell the ticket and then take a cut off of the ticket that you initially bought and then had to sell because you're a no-show. But you get to directly dictate the price in the middle of that. In short, they basically get to charge you 3 times for the same ticket. This is actually fucking evil, and I'm impressed that even in the United States, a country that does not care about consumer protections at all, that this is somehow legal and acceptable. Look, this sucks for basically everyone, which is where I think I'm gonna have to talk a little bit about dealership culture, and I gotta say, dealership culture in the United States is absolutely fucking bonkers.
Techmo, what do you mean when you talk about dealership culture?
Excellent question, Silica. Stick with me for this one. I'm gonna talk about something that might seem off topic, but it's related. And it will circle back around to how Ticketmaster operates. Now, I'm fairly certain that some other countries do this as well, but if you're watching from a country that isn't the United States or maybe Canada and Mexico, because let's be completely fair here, whenever the United States does anything unpopular, sometimes Mexico and Canada usually whip up their own version of it. Mexico less so within recent years, but I digress. In the United States, there's usually a bunch of middlemen when it comes to purchasing and financing a vehicle. Typically, you go to a car dealership which sells cars that it either buys off of people or sells new cars from a few select manufacturers after they get a surplus amount of inventory. So Lester's Auto down the street might be accredited to sell Honda, Acura, Toyota, and Nissan, while down the road you might have Susan's Automotive, which usually sells Ford, Chevy, Jeep, and Chrysler. Normally these vehicles must be purchased at a car dealership, in which they do a credit check, enforce payments, and actually sell you the vehicle and make sure that you get the deeds. Now here's the thing, car dealerships in the United States are a massive scam. Now, a lot of people are aware of the fact that car dealerships are a massive, massive scam, and in all honesty, they really don't need to exist. Now, if I had to take a guess, there's probably some law from like the 1930s or 1940s that I'm just unaware of that made it so you had to purchase a vehicle from the dealership as opposed to the manufacturer itself. But the entire point of a car dealership is to communicate between you, the credit bureau, and the manufacturer while scraping a little bit of money for themselves. In essence, in most cases, unless you're a government agency that is not tied to education, or unless you are extremely wealthy, because let's be honest here, Jeff Bezos probably gets a pass from participating in the system we peasants must participate in. You, in most cases, can't just purchase a car straight from the manufacturer. AKA, if I wanted to buy a Ford Focus Then I have to actually go through a dealership and hope they have the type of Ford Focus that I'm looking for, as opposed to just buying it from the manufacturer. Without your consent, you are basically forced into participating in this scam against your own will, because you're just not allowed to purchase, again, like a Honda Civic directly from Honda themselves. I could honestly make an entire video talking about car dealerships, but that's neither here nor there. Now, the reason I bring this up in the first place is because Ticketmaster is basically the same deal. They're a useless middleman that doesn't provide a service. Instead, they just exist to make a bunch of deals, scrape some money off the top, purchase as many venues as possible, and then with the little cherry on top of the entire situation, Klarna, Visa, MasterCard, and Equifax will swoop in and try to make you finance some of Ticketmaster's outrageous prices. Ticketmaster, in all intensive purposes, is a scam, and it operates similarly to that of a car dealership, which is notorious in the United States for being an extremely scummy business practice. There is a reason why people hate car dealerships and car salesmen. Again, Ticketmaster is the same shit. They make back-end deals with venues to make sure that you can't purchase the tickets through them. You have to purchase tickets through Ticketmaster, similar to how car dealerships make it impossible for you to purchase directly from the manufacturer, and instead you need to go through them to be able to purchase a vehicle. The only difference between Ticketmaster and car dealerships is that at the very least, at the moment, Ticketmaster does not make you sign a massive contract with sky-high monthly payments, and probably doesn't do a constant check with the credit companies, but the underlying scheme is practically the same as car dealerships. Ticketmaster is a genuinely vile, in quotes, service, if you can even call it that. Again, they effectively just went out of their way to bend the rules so you are forced into using their service instead of most other services. Now, granted, they don't have a 100% monopoly over everything. There was a case in which I did actually purchase a ticket for a concert and it wasn't through Ticketmaster, but it's slowly encroaching the point in which it is becoming a genuine monopoly. When you have one service that owns multiple venues, multiple other platforms for selling tickets, and on top of that owns the black market for selling tickets, you have a fucking problem. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I actually have some great news involving Ticketmaster. Since the Biden administration, Ticketmaster has been sued by various states for holding what a lot of them are calling an illegal monopoly, including the Federal Trade Commission. The states that have not filed lawsuits against Ticketmaster are as follows: Alaska, Hawaii, Idaho, North Dakota, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Maine, Kentucky, Arizona, Montana, and Delaware. If you can, you should call your representatives and tell them to get in on the lawsuit. I want to make something very clear. The majority of Americans want Ticketmaster and Live Nation to be broken up. There needs to be some genuine trust busting that happens here. There was a poll that was conducted in 2023 in which it was found that 60% of Americans would support efforts to break up Ticketmaster, with 72% being Democrats and 50% being Republicans and 46% being independents. Breaking up Ticketmaster and Live Nation is a popular mandate to run on. Now, I'm not saying anything won't happen, but I will say, despite polling indicating that Ticketmaster should be broken up, and the amount of people I've talked to about Ticketmaster, not a single one of them has said Ticketmaster is a necessary service to have. As well as, again, the fact that 38 states and the FTC filed a lawsuit against Ticketmaster. Again, I don't want to be pessimistic or anything like that, but the United States government is known for having an extremely ineffective Congress at best, and a bunch of malicious, indignant motherfuckers in there at worst, a lot of whom are just complete corporate cucks. Due to this cuckoldry, I highly doubt that anything will happen to Ticketmaster. Not trying to be pessimistic, just trying to be realistic on that one. Honestly, give it about 4 years, they might lower prices for a while, and then they will probably just go back to piling it higher and deeper when the heat gets taken off of them. Now for my last part, I would like to propose a fairly radical solution in order to make sure that ticket prices stay down forever. Tickets should not be sold via some third-party middleman that is trying to force people into paying crazy expenditures in order to turn a profit. Venues, event handlers, artists, platforms, teams, and performers should be the ones that handle the price of the tickets. Think of this as like, let's say the NFL is hosting a game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Detroit Lions, and the stadium of the NFL's choosing out in Detroit is required to disclose the number of seats that they have to the NFL and the teams in the NFL, and then the stadium dictates the cut that it needs to operate the stadium for the maximum amount of people. The NFL dictates the cut that it needs to be able to pay the teams to get them out there, and the teams should dictate the cut that they are going to need to be able to pay for travel, hotels, food, medical attention in case a person gets hurt while playing. But I don't see something like this happening in the United States. The United States is a goddamn financialization scheme in order to just milk everyone dry of their hard-earned cash that they got at their 9 to 5 that they absolutely fucking hate. Let's be completely honest with ourselves. What service does Ticketmaster actually offer? What service do dealers for basically anything that are not drugs actually fucking offer? They offer jack diddly shit, and are only there to capitalize on the thing done by other people, just because they can. And if we're going to be talking about drugs, at least there's an illegal sort of action going on behind that. Illegal actions do make sense for dealers to be involved. You need a fall guy. Look, a lot of restructuring needs to happen, but ticket prices will not go down unless something is done about Ticketmaster and dealership culture. Think about it like this. Out in the wonderful, wonderful land of Brazil, you can go to a football game and spend like maybe $10 and you get to just see the game. Why? Because people over there would riot if you couldn't. Why the fuck are we not basically doing the same thing? That's all I'm gonna say. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Techmo Snowspark signing off. Peace.